My name is Dr. Chris Jenkins, and I am the CEO of the Orianne Society and the host of the Snake Talk podcast, the podcast where you learn about nature's most feared, maligned, and persecuted animals. I invite you to listen to this conversation, and maybe you'll find that what you perceive as fear is actually rooted in a deep fascination. Welcome to the Snake Talk podcast. I am here with Shane Ngwenya from South Africa. We are continuing our series talking with students, and I'm excited to talk to Shane and talk to students who are working in other parts of the world than here in North America. So that's exciting. Shane is working in the lab of a colleague of mine who's been on the podcast many years ago. A professor there named Bryan Maritz, who I worked together with to develop the IUCN Viper Specialist Group, and he has developed quite a lab and a program there in South Africa, studying so many things about snakes. So it's good to have one of his lab members, to have Shane on the podcast. Welcome. How are you doing today?
Thank you so much, Chris, and thank you for giving me this opportunity, and thank you so much to the listeners back at home. I am doing great and super excited for this show. And how are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you. It's a little cold out today here in the mountains of Georgia, but it's that time of year, and just enjoying life. So before we get into kind of the podcast here, offline, we were talking about some interesting things. Why don't you just tell the audience a little bit about your name? What does your name mean in your native language?
So my name is Shane, and my surname is Ngwenya. So Shane is my second name, but my first name is Sifiso, which means wish. But I ended up using my second name, which is Shane. So in Africa, or in South Africa, we've got this tendency whereby parents would give their kids or their babies an English name and a vernacular name, because we've got I think 9 indigenous languages, and then the 10th one is English, and then the 11th one is sign language. So in those vernacular languages, the parent would decide, okay, I'm going to give my son one English name and then one name from my indigenous language. So my name is Shane Ngwenya, and there's an interesting thing about my surname, which is Ngwenya. So Ngwenya basically means crocodile. So that's the direct translation of my surname from Siswati into English. So I just basically have this reptilian surname, which is crocodile, and it's quite cool because I'm also into herpetology. So yeah, that's the story.
Yeah, this was destiny. You were destined to be a herpetologist, it sounds like. So
it just happened.
That's pretty cool.
On the right person.
So I always like to start off by learning a little bit about my guests, and I start right at the beginning. And so I like to hear, again, you're named after reptiles, so maybe, again, it was destined, but I like to hear how people get into it, because for a lot of people in the world, snakes and crocodiles and things of that nature are very foreign things.
Yeah.
And so when we develop this interest, it's sometimes kind of unique. So I'm just curious, the story there. Were you always into snakes going back as a child? Is it something that developed later in life, kind of as you got into your career? How did that all come together?
Yeah, just like you said, having a passion of being interested in reptiles and other wild animals, it sounds or it becomes a unique thing to people who are not really into the things that you're into. But for me, in my side, it's way, way, way more than being unique, because a lot of people, especially in my society, there's a lot of people that do not want to be around wildlife with snakes and owls, of which I'm just going to explain now. So how I ended up being interested in reptiles or herpetology, I was a kid that used to stay in an urban area. I used to stay in Nelspruit. I'm not sure if you heard about Nelspruit, which is the capital city of Mpumalanga. I used to stay in Nelspruit, and then when my dad passed away, I had to move back to the rural areas, the villages where I'm currently staying now. And then I stayed there. I was a head boy, but no, I wasn't a head boy same full time because I was a head boy and then also go to school, but only go out to look for cattle, look for cows, and look for goats and bring them back home from the field. I would always do that after school. So I was like everyone. Like I would fear snakes, I would fear reptiles, I would fear animals, I would kill each and every snake that I see. And being black and being in Africa, there's this narrative or this stereotype whereby we believe that if you see a snake, then something bad is going to happen to your family. If you see a snake, that snake has been sent by someone. If you see a snake, you're gonna die. So you just need to kill the snake and just ban it. So there's like a whole lot of myths and superstition and misconceptions around the concept of wildlife, especially snakes and reptiles. So I was also one of those person who was like fumigated with those myths and superstitions. I was fully into them, and fortunately enough, I started having like a smartphone, I think, in grade seven. Started having like Facebook, started having like Instagram, I started having like Twitter, and I started like showing interest in those social media platforms. But I was like looking into animals each and every day. I would search animals, wildlife, because I was also going into the bushes, right? Remember? And I would find things that I've never seen before, and I would try by all means to take pictures and then send them to different people on social media. Like, hey, I saw this thing. What is it called? I saw this thing. What is it called? I saw this thing. What is it called? I would kill a snake, but still take a picture and then upload it online. Like, yo, I saw this snake. Can you please help me identify it? People would help me identify that snake. So as time went by, I went to high school on grade 10 and I got into grade 10. I'm just a kid who's like always out and about, the kid that's always raising his hand, like, hey, if you have any opportunity, can you please give me this opportunity? I just really wanna come and volunteer and do anything that's nature conservation related. You know, if I can just come volunteer to whatever you're gonna be doing, I don't mind not getting paid, but I just wanna get some experience. So I ended up going to Facebook. I was like, okay, let me try to have a career exhibition for my matriculants. Remember that time I'm sitting grade 10 and matriculants are people or students that are in grade 12 here in South Africa. I was like, let me just try to have a career exhibition because I realized that staying or being in the villages, we do not have like resources. We do not have like exposure to the real world. We don't know anything. Like we just we are limited to that. If you are done with university, I mean, if you are done with high school, that's that. Like a lot of students, they do not have an idea. They don't know what to do after high school. They don't have any career direction. They don't know which direction they need to take after finishing school. So I was like, let me just try to organize a career exhibition. I organized a career exhibition, managed to get different professions, doctors, police, nurses, chartered accountants, engineers, and they all came to school just to talk with the matriculants and tell them that, hey, these are the opportunities that you can get after you've done your university time or once you go to university or if you decide to directly go to work. So I also wanted to bring like nature conservationists because I was into nature conservation. I really liked nature so much and I still do even today. I texted or I made a post on a Facebook page called Sun Parks Kruger National Park. I posted there asking Sun Parks to come to school to teach students or to show students the opportunities that they can get in or professions or careers that they can get in nature and conservation. That post blew up on Facebook. Like a lot of people commented, hey Shane, we're gonna help you. Even Sun Parks commented, like, hey, we're gonna help you, we're gonna send our rangers, we're gonna send our admin to come and assist you. But none of them showed up. Fortunately enough, a lady called Karen Vickers commented in that post, like, Shane, please send me an email in this email. I was like, okay, cool. Took that email, sent her an email, and 3 months down the line, didn't hear anything. And then think on the 6th month, that was in November 30, the 30th of November in 2019, saw an email with the headline saying, chain to the Kruger National Park. I was like, okay, this is interesting. So instead of them coming to my school, they invited me to go to Kruger National Park. And that's where I met my supervisor, my current supervisor, Bryan Maritz, like while I was still a scholar in grade 10. So I met Bryan Maritz, and they were doing like a field course in Kruger National Park with university students. 6 were from the University of Western Cape, and 6 were from the University of Mpumalanga. And the University of the Western Cape is my current university. So I met Bryan there, and they were doing a field course like trapping reptiles, looking at reptile ecology, using pitfall traps and photographing reptiles and doing active searches and active herping, and they'll also cruise at night looking for reptiles. So I kind of fell in love with herpetology from that day because I was supposed to stay for like 2 days for that course. But they were like, dude, you are excelling in the assessments that we're giving university students and you're not in university yet. So how about you stay for the remainder of the course? And then I stayed and I finished the whole entire course, which was like 2 weeks. And then I went back home. When I went back home, I started to realize that like all along I was just killing snakes for no reason. I was fearing snakes for no reason. I was fearing reptiles for no reason. Because now I've got knowledge, I've got truth, I've got the facts about the ecology, I've got the facts about the behavior of snakes, I've got the facts about snakes and wildlife in general. So that's how I ended up getting into herpetology. And from that day, I kept contact with Bryan Maritz till grade 11, grade 12. And then when I was done with high school, I had to decide on which university I'm going to. And then I was like, no, man, I'm going to University of Western Cape so that I can reunite with Bryan. I was like, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm going to that guy. And then I texted him.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well, let's stop there. I want to ask some
yeah,
questions
yeah,
about those younger days, and then
yeah, yeah, sure.
we're going to get into your move to the Western Cape. But so it's first of all, it's a pretty amazing story
Uh-huh.
that you started urban, ended up rural, and you're I think you called it a herder or herd boy, and you're working out in the bush.
Yeah,
And you had this transformation. And the thing that stood out to me is the ambition you had to go above and beyond. And you're pulling together like an exhibition, or like here we call it like a job fair, where you're bringing people into
yeah,
the school, trying to give opportunity, to your classmates, and just kind of better, better the situation
yes.
for the people in this village that you're in. I just think it's great. And you're also trying to advance your own career at the same time, trying to get the nature conservation aspect there. So, but it just struck me like that type of ambition and hard work. I mean, you can be anywhere in the world. That's the same in just a high paced urban New York
Uh-huh.
City or London setting, or small village in South
Yeah,
Africa.
yeah, yeah.
So I mean, I think that's a core skill that people could take away, that hard work and ambition can always elevate you to places that you want to be. So how are your family? I think you said you moved out to the rural areas when
Yeah,
your father passed
yes.
away, so I'm assuming your father was not in the picture. But when so you're a herder and you're out killing these snakes, but you're going through this transformation where you're actually gaining kind of an interest in these animals. How did your family take that? Did they think it was kind of off the wall? Were they excited? How did that all happen?
Not really. They were like not really excited. They're like kind of concerned, because they still have that mindset of like snakes are meant to come out here and kill people. Like people can use like your witch doctors and your sangomas, and they can use those things to kill you or bewitch you. So my grandma and my mom, they were like kind of unsettled. They just didn't like it. Like, okay, why are you pursuing this profession out of everything? Why are you interested in these things out of everything? You could be interested in being like a doctor, engineer, teacher, or a nurse. You can do a whole lot of things, but why snakes? Why wild animals? Because we fear animals, not because we fear them. It's because we do not know the truth about them. We only know myths, misconceptions, and superstitions about them. So my family didn't like it, to be honest. But I had to bring the solution, because if they didn't like it, they were going to stop me, which almost happened, because I was in a situation whereby my grandmother was like, "No, man, you need to like stop this, like set me down and talk to me, like you need to stop this, you need to stop doing this. People would bewitch you, you will die. People would just kill you. You might hang a brown house snake, which is harmless, and then all of a sudden it changes into a black mamba." I was like, Was that possible? So they just so those are the type of conversation they would give me, and I would think about them like maybe they're telling the truth. Maybe it does happen. I'm not saying witchcraft is not real. I don't know. It might be real, but I had to like also listen to them and respect them as my elders. But I was like, I'm not going to stop. What I'm going to do is I'm going to educate them. Like I'm gonna show them why I'm doing what I'm doing, and I'm gonna make them understand so that we can all be on the same page. And they were like quite supportive, even though they were like quite unsettled about it. My mom was supportive. If I needed to go to Kruger, if I needed to go to do some field work, I would tell her, hey, there's this opportunity that I have and I need to go study this and that. Can you please assist me? She'll give me transport money, or if she can, she'll even accompany me. So she was quite supportive, even though she was still quite unsettled about that situation. But I had to take the initiative and teach them and tell them the truth and make them understand, just like how I'm understanding right now, because I was in the same boat, on the same shoes as them. But now I'm out of that boat. So it's my turn now to take them out of that boat and make them see things the way I see them now. So that's how things were with my family when I had to make this transition from fearing snakes to loving snakes and to starting them.
Interesting. Well, that's great. So let's jump back in. So you're leaving your village. What part of the country were you living in this village? Were you near Cape Town, or were you where's that village located? Like just north, south, east, west? Like where?
The village, it's not. Cape Town is further south, like the southernmost tip of Africa. That's where Cape Town is. I stay up northeast, close to Mozambique and Swaziland border. That's where I'm based. That's where that village is based.
So up near Kruger's in that
Yeah,
area,
near
correct?
Kruger. I'm like 60 k's or 60 to 70 k's away from Kruger. So that's where my village is.
Yeah, got you. So you'd be closer to Johannesburg, if I remember right. That's on the east side of South Africa,
Yeah,
correct?
I'll be
Then you
closer
would
to
Cape
Johannesburg.
Town.
Then
Or
I
am I
would
wrong?
be kept. You are correct.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent. Just trying to get my geography straight here. Okay. So you go away. This is quite an adventure, going to a much different area down near the ocean. And what was that like? What was it like to go away to university? And just the living there in general, how did you focus your time? Was it exclusively on your studies? Did you kind of immerse yourself in, Bryan's lab and what he did? How did your undergraduate kind of come together?
So for undergrad, it was one of the most amazing years I've ever had in my life. And as a student moving away from home, which is something that I really wanted, like to be far away from home and be in a different place, because I'm a person who loves like having new challenges and new opportunities. And there's no better place to get those things than being far away from home and than being in Cape Town. So I went to Cape Town. I didn't think twice. I was like, also, I'm also going to be reconciling with this guy I met in grade 10. I was like, this is like the perfect opportunity for me. So I got into undergrad, and undergrad was fine. It was quite intense. But for me, because you're doing something that you like, that you love, you're passionate about, then it's just easy for you to flow into everything that you're being taught. Like you understand each and every concept easily. And that really made my undergrad super easy, if I may say. It made my undergrad super easy. And undergrad wasn't that difficult. And the moment I got into my first year, like 3 months in first year, Bryan already had me in his lab, and I was already starting to assist his students. I was already starting to assist his master's, PhD students. Mind you, I'm still an undergrad student. I would go to the field with them, help them out with data collection, help them out with data analysis and data cleaning. So I was already hands-on immediately when I got into first year, and I wasn't like fully focused on academics only. I was also like venturing into other things, like trying to raise my hand as far as I can so that people can recognize me, so that they can see me that, hey, there's this guy who's interested in this thing, and I would love to come and volunteer for you. And I was just doing a lot of extracurricular activities that are in relation to nature conservation. So I was just trying to get the experience as much as possible. So that's the whole thing, or that's how I did my whole entire grade from my first year until third year, because undergrad decide is 3 years and then honors is 1 year. So that's what I've been doing. Like, if I can tell you that I missed about like 2 to 3 months every year of each year of my undergrad, just because I was out volunteering, I was out looking for opportunities, I was out doing extracurricular activities. So that's how I was doing everything, or that's how I went about my undergraduate. I wasn't solely focusing on academics only, but other extracurricular integration to my career.
How was the shift from, I mean, obviously you lived in urban areas like you talked about when you were young, but how was that shift from essentially kind of living out in the bush near Kruger? You moved to completely different, eco-region, but you're in a very urban area. How was that shift moving back to an urban area for you after living so rural?
I think for me it was in kind of a big deal. It was easy to adjust and acclimatize myself to. The only problem was the weather, because when I had to move from Mpumalanga down to Cape Town, like Cape Town's weather is unpredictable. You can easily get all 4 seasons in one day. So the only thing that I was struggling to cope with was the weather. But after 6 months in my first year of undergrad, then I was like fully acclimatized to Cape Town's weather. I was like a mature Cape Townian that time around. So yeah, that was the only issue I had, because it wasn't the first time for me to transition from rural to urban and urban to rural, because I had to transition from urban to rural and then from rural to urban again. So it was quite easy.
Hey everybody, I just wanted to take a quick break and tell you that the Oriyan Society is dedicated to protecting some of North America's most at-risk species and their habitats, like eastern indigo snakes in the longleaf savannas, eastern hellbenders in the Appalachian highlands, and wood turtles in the great northern forests. Healthy ecosystems depend on these incredible animals, but these landscapes and species need our help to survive. If you care about reptiles, amphibians, and the wild places they call home, visit www.oriyan.org to learn more about our work and how you can get involved.
So Kruger area and up where, your village is, that's a very dry climate. Is that right? Correct me if I'm wrong, but pretty dry. I don't know if you'd classify it as a desert. But Cape Town gets a lot more precipitation and is colder. Would that be right? Or am I off base there?
I would say where I stay, Kruger region, it is dry, but it's mostly wet during summer season. And then Cape Town, it is also dry, but it does have some sort of like desert vibes in the Karoo and Namakaro region. And Cape Town only receives, or the Western Cape only receives rainfall or precipitation in winter. So I would say they both have their own season of being wet and season of being dry. But I would say in Mpumalanga or up north where I stay, it's a bit drier than the Western Cape. But this region receives more precipitation than Western Cape or Cape Town.
Okay. Interesting. Huh. And before we kind of dive into like your honors and then, where you're moving into with your graduate work, let's just talk about Kruger a little bit, because that's where a lot of this started on that class. And you said you're working up in that region. So just tell people a little bit about Kruger National Park. How big is it? Like, how is it managed by the government, and what, what types of like habitats and ecosystems are there? What types of snakes are there? That type of thing.
So Kruger National Park is one of the biggest park we have in South Africa. So it's a park owned by the government, which is about like 2 million hectares. I don't know how many acres it is, but it's like 7.7 thousand square miles. So I don't know how big is that in hectares.
Yeah, it'd be like acres. Over 4 million acres. So
4 million acres.
I mean, I don't remember. Yeah, it's a lot. It's big. It would be the size of of our multiple national forests. I live in and amongst the big national forests in Georgia, and it's about 1 million acres. So, it's 4 times that size at least. So,
Yeah, so Kruger, it's that big, like 2 million hectares. So it is managed by the government, and it's a huge park that it generates so much income that other national parks are dependent on it for their functionality. So it also provides like income and resources to other national parks that are owned by South African National Park, because Kruger is the biggest South African national park that we have here. So the vegetation there, it's mostly savanna, and we do have some grasslands. And it is spanning between two provinces, which is Mpumalanga and Limpopo. We've got the big five, of course, and reptile wise, we've got the most famous snakes that everyone wants to see in Africa or talk about. It's the black mamba. We've got lots of black mambas. We've got boomslangs. We've got house snakes. We've got cobras. We've got most of the elapids, which is your cobras, your mambas, and your vipers, your parfaiters, snouted night adders. And we've got a lot of harmless snake species, which is your Philodamnas species, like your water green snake, your spotted bush snake, your eastern Natal green snake, and other harmless snake species that we have. We've got brown house snakes. We've got rhombic egg eaters. I've also already mentioned.
Egg eaters. That'd be cool.
We do have egg eaters here.
How about
Uh-huh.
How about pythons?
Yes, we do have pythons. We've got like Southern African Python natalensis. That's the biggest snake species we have here in the continent of Africa. So yeah, we do have quite a lot of snake species, and I haven't seen all of them in Kruger National Park, but I have seen most of the species that I've mentioned outside Kruger and inside Kruger National Park. And we've got a lot.
How large will the pythons get? Like, what's the length? Do you know on the?
So the maximum length, I don't want to say maximum length, but the biggest python I've ever seen handled in the wild was about 4.5 meters, but they do get to like 6 meters.
Wow.
So they do get quite big. It's just that in the wild, they don't really get that big because it's a survival of the fittest. You don't have enough time to grow bigger and be like 6 to 8 meters. So the largest one I've ever caught in the wild or handled was like 4.5 meters. And then in captivity, I've seen a couple of individuals like being at 6 meters to 6.2, 6.3, 6.4, or 6.5 meters. So they do get quite big.
Wow. And so I'm assuming in Kruger's heavily used for tourism. So people like going on safaris where they're viewing wildlife and that type of thing. Is that the primary way that it's managed, relative to like the public?
Excuse me, can you please repeat your question?
Oh, I just said that I'm assuming there's a lot of tourism, like people going on like safaris to see wildlife in the park. Is that? Yeah. Okay. Excellent. Great. And so are you currently doing work in the park? Are you working near the park but outside of the park? How does that lay out?
So what I'm currently doing is I'm not officially working in the park yet. I just go in there's this researcher called Lawrence Kruger. They've got research going on here. They've been doing long-term monitoring research. So I've been reaching out to him, sending him emails and text messages on social media, asking for opportunities to come and learn out and volunteer. So that's what I'm currently doing. Every time whenever I'm back from university, during my holidays, I'll just go to Kruger National Park and just give them a hand for 3 nights or a week, depending on how much work they do have. So yeah, I'm not working in the park at the moment, but hopefully next year when I start my master's, I'll be working there because I might be doing my master's in Kruger National Park. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. So you're currently doing or finishing your honors. You said there's in South Africa there's 3-year undergraduate degree, and then you do a year of honors, and then you would go on to graduate school. So for people here in the States, that honors, that's that's just something we don't have. So describe a little bit, first of all, what the honors year is and what you're doing during that time.
So with the honors here, you just get introduced on how to be a scientist, how to write research, how to go about reading research papers, how to go about writing your own research, and you're even given the opportunity to go into the field and collect data for your own research that you're gonna analyze and write up as if like you're submitting to a journal. So the whole entire it's jam packed like that, like training students to become proper scientists, to go out into the field, observe, collect data, come back, analyze data, write up data according to whatever journal that you're going to be writing to, and then you just publish. So that's what the whole honors here is all about, just preparing you to be like a proper scientist.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, it's like a real experiential, hands-on type of experience with all aspects of science. So it sounds like actually a very good approach to developing scientists. So let's talk about your honors program. So it sounds like you probably decide on a project, like you're going to study a particular thing and you're going to design it and analyze it and, like you said, potentially publish it. So how did you end up developing your honors project?
So for my honors project, I initially didn't know what I was going to do for my honors project, but I knew that I was going to be doing my honors project. Fortunately enough, at school, like the supervisors that we have, they already have like projects available for students. So it's either you go ahead with the project that they give you, or you can come up with your own project. You've got options. But I was like, Brian was like, I do have data in the lab from a previous student that I want you to analyze so you can work on it. I was like, no. I want to do my own project. I want to go to the field. I want to collect the data myself so that I can understand the project better, So that's how I ended up coming up with my project. And we went on a writing retreat with his lab in this research station in the Northern Cape while I was still in undergrad. And we got to that research station. I was like, this might be a good place for me to do my honors project. And then that's when we started chatting more about it. And then we developed the idea. I think that was last year, December. And we're like, okay, cool. We're going to study the abundance of geckos in this research station in different habitat types. And we just took it from there because that station is like much more of it was a farm before, but now it has been left and abandoned. They no longer practice farming. And there's some plots that have been heavily affected by farming, overgrazing, and plowing, like a lot of agricultural activities. And there's like a high diversity of reptile in that research station. So like we're going to look at the abundance of geckos and different habitat types. So December, we're like, sure, we're going to do that. That's what I'm going to be doing for my honors. And then this year in January, I had to leave home early so that I can get enough time to go back to a research station and collect data. Because once you start honors, you barely have like time to do like field work. It's only here and there in order for you to do your field work. But for me, I needed like enough time so that I can have as many samples as possible. So that's how I ended up with my honors project.
Yeah, interesting. So what type of geckos are you surveying there?
So the geckos that we have here is your geckos in the genus Chondrodactylus, Afrogecko. How many species? I think there's about like 29 gecko species within that research station. So those are the kind of geckos we have. Your barking geckos, like your crown geckos, rock dwelling geckos. There's like a lot of different species that are like habitat specialists at the same time.
Okay. Do you have leopard geckos? I don't even know where they occur naturally. They're huge in the pet trade over here.
We don't have leopard geckos here. Isn't that like an Asian species or something, like alongside the
maybe so. I'll have to look.
Geckos.
I've never. Yeah, no, tokay is definitely are. I don't know about leopard. I don't know. I'll look them up. I've never really thought about it, honestly, but just made me think. So, anyways, so you're going to go out, and how did you like define the different habitat types? Did you define the habitat types ahead of time? Like this is forest, this is like plowed field, this is whatever, swamp, and then go out and survey those? Or did you go survey the animals and kind of then measure the habitats that were around them?
So I had to define the study size before I go to the field. So I selected the study site using Google Earth with Brian. So we just go to Google Earth and zoom into the research station and the boundary of the research station, and see which areas have been influenced by agricultural activities. And then when we got to the site itself, we went to double check and what we were seeing on Google Earth was the truth or not. So if we did something wrong on Google Earth saying, okay, this plot has been affected by overgrazing of agricultural activities, and we do not see any signs or any activities of agriculture, then we'll switch that. We'll remove that site and then place it on another plot, so that we can confirm what we saw on Google Earth is relating to what we're seeing in real life. So that's how I went about defining my study sites.
Okay. And then so you've got these different sites that are, kind of stratified or categorized by different habitat types. And then how did you survey for the geckos? Was it like a timed visual survey? Or were you doing some type of trapping or cameras but how did you actually find the geckos?
So the geckos were like actively staged, like visual survey. We're not touching, not doing anything to the geckos. So what we will do is we will time each survey for 20 minutes, and the study site was like a 50, how many hectares? Not hectares, like a circle with like 53-meter radius, and we'll be at the center we'll be in the center of the plot, and then we'll time our searches for like 20 minutes. So we'll search that plot for like 20 minutes. We'll do like active searches. What one observer will have a pair of binoculars and a spotlight. So we'll just put the pair of binoculars on top of the spotlight, and then we just scan within the plot. And if that observer detects any eye shine or body shine, he will indicate to the second observer using a laser pointer. And then the second observer would go to where the laser pointer is being pointed and to see whether there's a gecko or not. And if there's a gecko detected, we'll just take a picture and upload it on iNaturalist. And we'll also do like active searches within the plot. Like we'll actively search geckos with torches and spotlights and while walking. So that's how we went about.
Interesting. So you're doing the surveys at night, primarily looking for eye shine. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And are the geckos more active? Are they more nocturnal?
Yes, they are
in general, or some species more.
They are more nocturnal in general, but we have one species within that region that's diurnal, which is the Namaqua day gecko. Then the other species are like active at night.
Okay, interesting. So did you find any differences in terms of like whatever gecko presence, distribution, diversity, anything like that among the different habitat types that you surveyed?
Hey everybody, I just wanted to take a break and tell you guys that snakes are one of the most persecuted groups of animals in the world, but we are dedicated to changing that. The Orianne Society works every day to ensure there's a future for these amazing animals. If you care about snakes, wildlife, or wild places, and you like what you've been hearing on the Snake Talk podcast, support us today by donating on our website at www.orianne.org.
So yeah, I was mostly looking at the abundance of each gecko species. So out of the many species that we have there, I only managed to find or detect 5 species. So what I found was that some of the species habitat special, especially some they are not. But we had like variables that were influencing the abundance of each gecko species, because we found 5 gecko species, but I couldn't analyze the 5th one because I only had one detection. I only saw it once, and then I didn't see it out of the 80 samples that we had. So I had to analyze 4 gecko species. What we found is the environment, the site variables that we measured, which is exposed ground, exposed rock, and vegetation cover. And what other variables did we measure? I can't recall the other variables, but those were the core site variables that we used that we measured in order to do our N mixture analysis. And then we had environmental variables, which is air temperature, surface temperature, humidity, moon phase, wind speed, cloud cover, and I think underground temperature. So those are the variables that we have. So when I use my N-mixture models, I try to have the most ecological combinations of variables between the site variables and the observational variables and see which combinations are going to influence the abundance of the geckos. So for one species, like which is Chondrodactylus biproni, it's a rock-dwelling gecko. And after with the analysis that I did, the N-mixture analysis, I found out that that species, the abundance of that species, is heavily influenced by the presence of rocks, of exposed rocks. And that really supported what we saw while we're doing the surveys, because that species was only found in a habitat that had rocks only. And then we found another species, which is Pachydatylus weberi, which was influenced by exposed rock and vegetation cover. And in the site that we're doing the samples or the observations from, that species was only found in sites that had rock cover and high vegetation. So rocks that are interspersed with vegetation. And then for the other species, which is Pachydatylus macrolepis, we found that this species had a negative relationship with exposed rock, meaning that this species prefers a habitat that doesn't have any rock, but sand or open vegetation. And that was shown, or that was proven by the observation that we had, because we didn't find that species in a habitat that had exposed rock or a lot of vegetation. We only found it in the habitat that was either flat natural or flat transformed, which means it's flat with little vegetation, or flat transformed by agricultural activities. It's flat and transformed with no vegetation cover at all. So that's what we found in our study. But we had to conclude or to analyze the data with caution, because the models that we're using, the N-mixture models, they're like sensitive to like a lot of data, and sensitive to like small amount of data. And the variances that we got when we were plotting the predicted abundance in relation to the covariates, we had like a large variance, which means as much as we are seeing some patterns from the data that we collected, this data is not 100% or accurately reflecting what we are seeing in real life, but we do get some patterns from the data that we're getting. So we had to analyze and conclude our conclusion with caution. And we definitely need to go back to that site and get more samples, and also try to maybe like incorporate some of the species that are active during the day, because that could have had like a negative influence, or it has been like a limitation for my study, because we're only sampling at night and we only managed to get 5 species out of like 12 to 13 species, which if we had more species, we could have gotten like a more robust results, or more robust discussion and conclusion. So it's a matter of having to deal with the limitations we had, which was like time and the number of samples that we had. But overall, we did manage to show some patterns from the observation that we saw while we're doing the surveys and the sampling.
Interesting. So you're finishing, you're towards the end of your honors year, and you, as we were talking, you're planning on going on and getting a master's degree. So are you planning ideally on doing that with Bryan and his lab? And what are kind of you mentioned wanting to work in Kruger National Park. So what are kind of your ideas for a project you want to do for your master's? And again, will you be doing that with Bryan?
Thank you. I'm definitely going to be staying with Bryan, because I don't see myself like doing any reptile related degree without Bryan, because he's definitely good at what he's doing, like best supervisor you'd ever have. So I'm going to be doing my master's with him, and I've already finished my honors, I think like a week ago, and I already got results. So I'm definitely going to start my master's next year. So my idea that I have, I want to study the community of reptiles. So in Kruger National Park, they've got these exclusion plots that have been running for like 60 years, which is the same plots where I went to volunteer, used to volunteer. That's where I came from like 2 days ago. Those exclusion plots, there's a fence around the plot, which is excluding all animals from feeding, especially elephants. You know that elephants are keystone species and they just destroy vegetation, and other herbivores, they just have a heavy influence on the vegetation structure. So there's like exclusion plots, and then there's half exclusion plots, where the half exclusion plots do allow other antelopes to come in and feed, like your impalas, your pushbacks, but elephants and giraffes and other big herbivores are excluded from feeding. And then there's like control plots whereby all animals are feeding. There's no fence, there's nothing. And those plots have been running for like 60 years now, being monitored. And there hasn't been all this lately study done on the reptiles. So what I want to do is I want to go to all of those plots and survey the reptile community or trap reptiles, and then compare like and see what's influencing the reptile community. Is it the presence or the absence of big fauna or not? Or is there any other guidance that are influencing the community of reptiles? So I just saw those plots and I was like, this is going to be a great master's project if I just sample reptiles in all of these different plots and just compare them and see what's influencing the community of reptiles. Mm-hmm. So that's just the baseline or the foundation of my master's.
Yeah, I think that's a great design. So I'm imagining that, as you mentioned, the elephants are, they are a disturbance factor in and of themselves, just like as impactful as something like fire or flooding might be to an ecosystem. And so they're really affecting the vegetation. So I'm assuming outside of these enclosures in general, the vegetation's lower, more trampled down in a lot of spots, and inside the enclosures, the vegetation has grown up into a form of forest. And so I'm curious, from a snake perspective, like what would you predict? Like what we talked a little bit about the snakes that you find in Kruger, but what would you predict you would find snake-wise kind of in those two different, the disturbance maintained ecosystem by the elephants and the undisturbed ecosystem? What would be the differences in the snake communities? Again, that you would predict. I know you're going to be studying it. But
you mean like species-wise or quantity-wise? Like, will I find more snakes in the exclosures or...
Either or both. What are kind of your hypotheses? Are there? I don't understand. Like maybe you'd expect more mambas outside the enclosures, and more pythons inside, or whatever it might be. But I'm just curious, kind of going into the study, what you would predict you would see.
So firstly, let's talk like numbers wise or quantity wise. I would expect to find more snakes or reptiles in the exclosures because they've got like lots of vegetation cover, and vegetation cover provides like a lot of prey, which is rodents, and rodents it's food for snakes. So I'm definitely predicting that I'm going to find more snakes or reptiles in the exclosures. So species wise, I would say I might find a lot more grass snakes, which is your likes of some of his species, like your olive grass snakes. Might find more grass snakes in the exclosures, and mambas. I would say I can find more mambas and more Mozambique spitting cobras in the exclosures or the plots whereby there's going to be like a whole lot of vegetation. But I can also predict that in some of the control plots or the half closure plots, I might find what other snake species are occurring there. I might find like your likes of pythons, your parfetters, because the full exclosure fences, they use like electric fence. So, and snakes are always slithering and they need to climb over the fence, and they might not survive trying to go through to the full exclosure plots. So I think I might also find more snakes in the half exclosure plots and less snakes in the control plots because they are just exposed or barren and they have little to no vegetation at all. So those are my predictions.
Okay. So like looking way into the future, like what's your ultimate goal? Obviously you want to continue to be a herpetologist and work with snakes, reptiles in general. Do you ultimately want to go on and get a PhD, try to become a faculty member, or do you want to become like a biologist at a park? Have you thought about that much? What's kind of your future career goals?
That's a great question. At the moment, PhD it's most likely to happen. probably while I'm working, I'll see how things turn out in the future. But I do see myself going into academia, but I do also see myself being like a biologist because I don't really like being in like a classroom settings or behind the desktop setting. I just like or prefer to be in the bushes, always doing the hands-on stuff. That's what I prefer. And I'm not strictly focusing on herpetology because I'm also involved in the environment impact assessments, the EIAs. I don't know what you call those in the US, whereby a company, like a consulting company, will be called up. Maybe let's say you've got a certain company that you want to start a wind farm or a solar farm. Before you develop that land, you need to have some specialists or ecologists to come and survey the biodiversity there. So I was also volunteering or freelancing for some of the companies here in South Africa. I'll go there as a field biologist and as a herpetologist, and I'm also into geospatial data. I make maps for those companies. I just do a whole lot of things to contribute to nature and conservation. So in the future, I'm more likely to be a field biologist than to be an academics or to be a faculty member. So that's how things are looking, or maybe end up having my own consulting company. You never know, but definitely I am planning on getting my PhD, but to remain in academia, I don't know. I don't know at the moment.
Gotcha. Okay. So last series of questions, and we'll begin to wrap things up here. But so, I think a lot of people here in the U.S. have a pretty good idea of kind of the process of how to move through all these steps and get into graduate school and move on through their career. But I just wonder if you have any advice for people in South Africa, students in South Africa, based on your experiences and what you've done so far.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice for people who are interested in getting into this field generally or ecology generally? Any just kind of words of wisdom for folks?
I would say, man, just get a profession and get into something or study something that you love. I know, like a lot of people will say, it's all about the money. It's all about getting money. Yes, you do need to get the money, but you definitely need to do something that you love. And if you do something that you love, it's gonna be easy for you to work on that. It's gonna be easy for you to excel in that thing that you love because you love doing that thing, which is one thing that I see most of South African students are struggling with. It's like they're doing some things that they do not love, and the moment they start getting like a lot of work, they start complaining, which is what I'm seeing of experience with my classmates. It's like there is like a lot of my classmates that come to uni and do extracurricular stuff, because all of their time and energy goes into like studying. And the moment you study something that you do not love, that's when you get anxiety. That's when you get stressed. That's when you get depressed because you have these thoughts of like, yo, I need to pass this thing. I need to pass this thing. I need to work hard to pass this thing. I need to really work hard. So I would say if you're out there and you don't know what to do, just make sure you do something that you love. Because if you do something that you love, you will not be frustrated or be worked out if you need to start studying or if you need to start working. It's better to be at a workplace that you enjoy and you are healthy and then get paid less than to be at a workplace where you get paid a lot, but you don't even get to enjoy what you're being paid for. You are depressed. You just have a lot of things going on in your life. So you just need to be doing something that you like. And most importantly, that's how I roll. Like if you can ask Bryan, there isn't like a lot of students in my undergrad or in undergrad, they can tell you like, yo, I missed about 6 months. I mean, I missed about 3 months of undergrad, or I missed about 3 months of classes. I would miss classes. I would miss Bryan's classes. I would miss other professors' classes because I had to go and freelance for someone. I had to go to do some field work and get paid for it. But me missing those classes doesn't mean I'm not going to do that work. It's either I do that work in advance and come back and catch up because I love that thing that I'm doing. But if you're someone that's doing something that they do not love, you won't even be motivated to do extracurricular stuff. And you're just going to be stuck in that box. Like, okay, I'm boxed in here because I need to finish this thing, But if you're doing something that you love, you'll be able to spread your wings. You'll be able to do extracurricular activities. You'll be able to do a whole lot of things. You just need to do what you love. And most importantly, you need to have faith. Like, I'm a Christian, I'm a believer. I have faith. I pray about everything. I fast and I do everything. I believe in the Lord Jesus Christ helps me with everything that I'm struggling with. So, but most importantly, you need to do what you love, and most importantly, have faith and just pray about everything. That's the advice I have for the people of South Africa, and to everyone listening at home.
Yeah. follow your passions and have faith. That sounds like a pretty good recipe. So, well, Shane, I like to have all of my guests tell me a snake story. So go ahead, tell us your best snake story.
My best snake story. Oh, I need to go to the shelf quickly because there's quite a few. There's quite a lot actually. My best snake story. Best snake story. Oh yeah, best snake story was when we had a problematic Cape Cobra. But at my university, if you didn't know, we have like a nature reserve on campus. So some of the animals would like leave the nature reserve and come to campus, and most of those animals are snakes. So this other time, the university sends out like mass communications to all students and all staff members, like, hey, there's been a snake that has been spotted by the pink prefabs buildings. So please be careful when you go to that site. And that's interesting email because that's good news for me. Like, I just get excited whenever someone talks about snakes. And then I went to check out that site. I went to check out that spot that they were talking about. And when I got there, there was like a red tape around the site where the snake was spotted. And I went there on my first day to stalk that snake. It was a Cape Cobra. So it was moving underneath like a concrete block. So there's a hole in the concrete block, and it would move from one room to the other. So what I would see only was just the snake in the concrete hole, like just moving from one room to the other room, but underneath. So I would stalk the snake seat, and sometimes it would like pop out its head and then go back, pop up its head, go back, and just to see, is it safe for me to come out or not? And that was during like working hours. And I had to go back home. The following day, I had already booked my bus to go back home to Malanga from Cape Town. And I was like, I'm not going to leave this snake here. I need to do something about it. It started raining. I went back home. I went back to my residence. I was like, I'm going to come back later when everyone has went back home so that it's much more quiet and safe for the snake to come out. Then I went back to the same spot. I sat there like hours and hours as if like I'm one depressed student, but I wasn't. I was like one of the most excited students at that time. So the moment of truth came, and then the snake started coming up because now everyone has went home. That campus is now nice and silent. The snake started coming out. And I waited until the whole snake was out of the hole so that it doesn't quickly retract if I just approach it. And then I waited for it to move, I think to move about 6 or 7 meters away from that concrete hole. And I just approached it from the back with my tongs, and then I grabbed my tongs, and then I grabbed the snake, and then I moved away with the snake from the concrete hole. I didn't have bucket. I only had like I only had my tongue. And then I called one of the reserve staff members and like, hey, I got the snakes. Do you mind coming here to give me a hand? And then they came, and then we got one of those big campus dustbins, and then we chucked in the snake inside the bin, and then we sent it back to the nature reserve. That's where it was released. And guess what happened the following day? The faculty dean went to Bryan and complained like, why are you guys allowing students to hang the snakes? Why are you guys allowing students to hang the snakes? Because if something went wrong, you could have been in trouble, or the student could have been in trouble, or the university could have been in trouble. You guys should have called like a professional to come and sort out the problem. I was like, but problem solved.
You guys are professionals.
We are professionals, but problem solved. Like, why are you still complaining? The problem is solved. Like, no one got hurt. The snake is safe. The campus is safe. Now you don't need to be worried about students getting struck or beaten by snakes. So problem solved. Why are you still complaining?
Yeah.
So that was like quite fun. That was like one of my my snake story that I always tell, like, even after helping out, they still complain. They still went to my supervisor and be like, never allow students to do that. I'm like, you are going to call a professional, get charged money, but I did it for free for you. Then why still complaining? But I do understand like the logistics and whatnot and red tapes behind academics and university or institutions. They're like very, very strict when it comes to student safety. But if you can get the job done, just get it done, just like I did. So yeah, that's one of my favorite snake story to tell.
Yep, that's a great story. Well, Shane, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Pleasure is mine, Chris, and thank you so much for hosting me. And I want to say thank you so much to the listeners at home for taking their time to listen to this podcast up until to the end.
Excellent. And I just wanted to thank the audience and tell everybody to remember, snakes are animals too, and it's a privilege to see one in the wild.